This is the Commonwealth War Memorial, one of several that are here in Alamein, but this particular one houses more than 11,000 graves of those who fell during the Alamein battle of the Second World War. Now, we have here with us in Alamein on the northern coast of Egypt, the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, that is Honorable Nosiviwe Mapisa Nqakula. She laid a wreath here earlier on today, and other countries as well, including the United Kingdom. Germany, which was on the Axis side, also laid a wreath. Many African countries laid wreaths here because Africans participated in this war. Some came as laborers, some came to carry equipment, but ended up on the front line. But those stories have not been told up until now. And our minister said to us when we spoke to her yesterday that part of her mission for coming here is to ensure that those stories are told, because Africans have been on the forefront of fighting fascism and apartheid way before it started in South Africa. But here with us today to talk to us more about what happened here, the significance of it, is Lieutenant General Lindile Yam. He is the chief of the South African Army. But first of all, General, I think you have to explain to us, because for those of us who are civilians, we tend to confuse the SA Army and the South African Defence Force.
The South African National Defence Force is the bigger whole with four services. The South African Army, followed by the South African Air Force, the Navy, and the military health services.
Right. Now, for you being here today, what does it say?
For me being here, I first and foremost represent the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, General Shoke. Soldiers who died here, mainly Army soldiers, Army representing the land forces. This is the blood of the South African soldiers, a resolve of our people to sacrifice for the best of humankind and for the prevention of conflict as part of the international community with their own blood.
Now, as I indicated, Minister said to us when we spoke to her yesterday, the story of especially black South Africans is underrated in terms of it's being told and the role that they played, especially in the victory that eventually came to the Allies. Now, we see today heads of the army in South Africa being people like yourself who represent that minority that was called in those days the Native Corps. How do we continue to tell that story?
That's exactly the point. Besides the SS Mendi tragedy, this here has got more numbers of what was called the Native Corps, which means a number of the black soldiers across our blackness, mainly African, and also in what is in South Africa called colours, and probably those of Indian descent. Now, here lies a number of the members of what was called the Native Corps at the time, which therefore is in content is the black soldiers who all of a sudden we know about, and they were hidden. They've been there in the books of history, except in our country. Now, everybody knows about them. And we are not only commemorating because it's them here. We are commemorating because the South African blood was shed in preventing fascism in this war. That is why we are here to confirm and to give hope to those soldiers who still live and are involved in conflict now, as we speak, elsewhere in the continent. But they know we mean it when we say we will remember them. We will not forget anyone of ours who sacrificed on behalf of our people and for the sake of their future prosperity.
Now, you, as I say, are one of those at the helm of the South African Defence Force. You are head of the South African Army. How far has the South African Army come in terms of the segregation that we saw in the days when these people who are lying here today lost their lives?
I think we are a very good example as the South African military, if I may put it like that, to leave the future South African society in microcosm much more early on. we are the embodiment of what our people aspire in what is called non-racialism. In as far as we even forget, by the way, whose color is who. That's, you know, because soldiers, the manner they live, they live and bond together. They begin to understand each individual's strength, and they always have got unflinching leadership most of the time. So all this concoction of chaos is not in their minds, by the way, and I hope South Africans will learn from that. We intend to live by that example.
Now, when we look at the world today, the new challenges facing particularly security is terrorism. Where do we see the oneness that we saw when you were fighting fascism in the world today? Does it still exist?
Well, terrorism is but one form of warfare. We don't prepare for one form of warfare. We prepare for all kinds of warfare, of which always the first one will be conventional warfare, because then everything else can gel in there. You build all kind of capabilities and units to face certain kinds of conflict, all kind of conflicts. That's why even if you call us for disaster, you find that we are there, although that is not conflict, because the military by its nature is a basket of the country for what may come. It's the fruit when the desert summer or the winter comes. It's when every hope has been lost. You, as our people, will just take from that basket, and we assure you, there's no kind of conflict we're not ready for.
Thank you very much, General. That is Lieutenant General Lindile Yam. He is the Chief of the South African Army, and as he explained to us, the South African Army is part of the South African Defence Force. But coming to an end of the commemorations of the 75th anniversary of the Battle of El Alamein, here we understand, as war writers say, is where more than 200,000 people on the Allied side lost their lives, more than 600,000 on the Axis side lost their lives. But here at El Alamein, more than 11,000 graves. Some people have come here to visit, some have been overwhelmed. We understand stories of those that have never met their fathers but only see their names here and were overwhelmed by emotion. But these are the commemorations and the proceedings that will go on throughout the day.
And many thanks to our reporter there, Nthakoana Ngatane, reporting from the El Alamein War Memorial in Egypt. Now, financing development is becoming a huge challenge, especially with traditional financing institutions scaling down funding, largely because of global pressures. To address the issue of development finance, the University of Cape